Welcome and merry meet. I'm Colleen Criswell, and today in our lecture series we will be discussing the celebration of Yule. Most pagans and Wiccans know Yule. Next to Samhain, it is the most popular Sabbath in the wheel of the year. It is our winter holiday celebration. It falls on the winter solstice, which runs between December 19th and 22nd in the northern hemisphere and June 19th and 22nd in the southern hemisphere. This is also known as the longest night because it is the day that the sun is the furthest away from the earth during its rotation. The theme of this day is traditionally called the birth of the sun in many traditions. As I stated, it is the longest night, meaning that the world is in darkness for the longest amount of time. So when the sun rose the next morning, it was a relief to know that the light returned. So to many practitioners, the sunrise was akin to Mother Earth giving birth to the sun god child. So for many people who follow this storyline, it's common to stay up all night and watch the sun being born at sunrise. Some pagan people would light bonfires not only to keep them warm on the cold, dark night of winter, but also to be a form of sympathetic magic. As energy attracts like energy, the light of the bonfire was to help direct the light of the sun on his triumphant return. Another pagan story is that of the battle of the Holly King and the Oak King. These two gods rule different times of the year. Yule is one battle, and the other battle is on Litha, which is the summer solstice that falls anywhere from June 19th through 22nd in the northern hemisphere and December 19th through 22nd in the southern hemisphere. Now, this is where it kind of gets a bit confusing. When we look at Holly King, we see pine and holly berries traditionally. So immediately we would think that he would come into power on the winter solstice. However, this is not the case. On the summer solstice, we have the longest day of the year, and this is when the first battle happens. So on the night of the summer solstice, the Holly King wins the crown, and now our descent into the shorter days begins, until the winter solstice, when the battle happens again, and this time, on the longest night, or the winter solstice, the Oak King wins the day, and the days start to become shorter. So on Yule, when the battle happens, the Holly King loses the crown to the Oak King, and the days start to get shorter, and the light returns. In the Northern Hemisphere, we're doing this in December, which correlates with a number of other winter holidays. They all focus on a central theme, the idea of fellowship, love, and hope, as well as the idea of the returning of the light. This comes in many different forms, be it the birth of Christ, the lighting of the candles on the menorah, or Kwanzaa candles, or the celebration of the return of the rebirth of the sun. Now, during this time of year, we have numerous traditions that we celebrate, and these are common things despite the holiday you're focusing on. So for those who are still in the broom closet, you can still celebrate Yule without there being a big neon sign pointing to your house saying, "Hey, a witch lives here." Putting up a tree, especially if you have Christian family, is a common choice. The Christmas tree does have pagan roots. Back in the day, the tree stayed outside in nature. The ornaments were traditionally items that were being hung on the tree to feed the wildlife and birds. This actually made it so the wildlife that the early pagans needed to hunt for food would come closer so the people could trap and kill them so they could survive during the harsh winter seasons, since things don't grow that much at that time. Much later in time, people started bringing the evergreens and strung pretty things on them to bring a little bit of nature inside. Candles are big in many traditions. Again, candles are our little bit of light that we can do to attract more light to us, to bring the sun back and getting the darkness to go away. This can be found in the twinkle lights that are strung on houses and in the trees, the light to pull in more light and positive energy. The Yule log. This one now comes in many shapes and forms these days. You can take a log and drill holes in it and add candles. They have pre-made in many stores nowadays. I have one that is actually a candle. Then there is my all-time favorite, the cake version. Usually a chocolate jelly roll cake with cream filling. The purpose of the Yule log is to remind us that though the world may die off, life will return. But it can also be delicious. During Yule time, we also have some famous figures that play an important role in the Northern Hemisphere. St. Nicholas, Befana, Santa Claus, and Krampus. St. Nicholas was a real person. He was actually a cobbler and toy maker from a very affluent family. His family didn't understand why he was always so nice to everyone and gave away his work, and they actually ended up disowning him because of it. One year during the winter, he was fixing shoes of the villages, and he would enter the houses to replace the old shoes. He noticed that they would hang their socks along the fireplace to dry them, so he started placing small toys, nuts, and fruit in the socks, which is where the idea of the Christmas stocking comes from. St. Nicholas Day is traditionally on December 6th. Later on, he was transformed into Santa Claus, who comes Christmas Eve. Befana is an Italian entity. We see her as the Yule Witch. It is said that she was sweeping her walk and was invited to witness the birth of the sun god. However, she refused as she had too many chores to complete, had no time for it. Later on, however, the story was changed a bit to being visited by the three wise men to see the Christ child. Because she did not go, because she needed to finish the work for the day, she is a symbol of remembering that hard work pays out. In the end, because she chose to do the hard work, she was given the power of magic. It is said that she makes sure that people are not simply playing, but doing work, and will visit to make sure your house is in order. If it is, she will leave useful gifts. If not, she will leave you nothing. Krampus is one of my favorite stories, but then I love a good horror story. The story of Krampus is mainly he is the anti-Santa. Santa Claus, we know, is the incarnation of the idea of St. Nicholas. He has been transformed from a hard-working benefactor to a jolly old elf that makes toys in the North Pole with all of his elves and reindeer and brings gifts and toys to all the good little children in the world. Krampus, however, deals with the not-so-good children. Krampus is said to be the evil creature that takes up naughty children and places them in a sack which he beats with a stick to be taken back to the coal mines. Krampus is said to come with St. Nicholas or Santa to deal with those naughty children on Santa's list. Krampus has been brought back a bit now with movies that have been made depicting him, such as the movie Krampus that came out last year, and then another favorite of mine called Santa's Sleigh. This year, I decided to put up a Krampus decoration that I created because I feel Krampus is often left out in our celebrations. Made it myself. I'm very proud of it. We had a 6-foot wire tree that no longer worked, so I draped some leftover costumes from Halloween, used an old mask, used styrofoam wreath and black duct tape to make the tongue and horns, and used some felt tree skirts for the cape. I knit the ruffle around the cloak. I really think there should be more Krampus decorations, but then again, I love this sort of thing. In our family, we celebrate all of these stories. On December 6th, my daughter would put out her old shoes and notes to Santa and Befana. St. Nicholas would come, replace her old shoes with new ones, leave her a chocolate orange and a small gift. Then on Yule, we would make homemade ornaments and string popcorn for the birds and make bird feeders. Then we would clean our house, make sure everything was put away. Befana would come on Yule and bring practical items such as toothbrushes and crafting supplies. On Yule morning, we would get up early and watch the sun come up. Then on Christmas Eve, Santa would come and bring toys and fun stuff. Luckily, we have never had to worry about Krampus paying us a visit. So remember, the reason for the season isn't all about any one specific path. It is about love and hope. So from my family to yours, I wish you all a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, a blessed Yule, a Merry Kwanzaa, a happy solstice, a happy Hanukkah, a happy feast of St. Lucia, or whatever else you celebrate. Whatever you celebrate or don't, I wish you peace and happiness, love and hope through it. So now you know a little about Yule and ways to celebrate it and how to enjoy it with all people. Thank you for listening. Mary Part.